You will never recover from that. Because the first thing out of your mouth, you've told the students the reason they ought to have integrity is because it leads to success. Anybody can have integrity when it leads to success. The question is, will you have integrity when it leads to the cross? Right. That's the question. That's right. And that's kind of what Jesus is kind of doing to the apostles here. Yeah, you can follow me when I'm healing the sick and raising the dead, and all the people are amazed, but are you going to follow me when I take you to the cross? Tough stuff. But it gets better. You notice at the end there that Mark introduces the concept of shame. And that makes all my antennas start firing. Now that you know the true story, will you be ashamed of me? And if you are, then I'll be ashamed of you. And I start to wonder and I wonder. But I don't have to wonder very long if I keep reading the book of Mark. Okay, so here I have another assignment for you. When you don't have anything else to do, sometimes read the last 2 or 3 chapters of Mark. 14, 15, the beginning of 16, and read about the trial and crucifixion of Jesus. Don't read the other Gospels, just read Mark. Read what he says about the trial and crucifixion of Jesus. And you're going to have to read it twice. The first time you go through, look and see how much time Mark spends describing Jesus' pain. And what you will see is there's virtually nothing there about Jesus' pain. Mark has no interest in that. That's Mel Gibson's thing. How many of you have seen the Passion of the Christ? I think you might also rename it Jesus Christ Chainsaw Massacre. He kind of just revels in the pain. Okay. Then go back and read those last few chapters of Mark and look and see how much time he spends talking about Jesus' shame and humiliation. And what you'll find is he spends sentences and paragraphs describing Jesus' shame and humiliation. It's all over the place. You know, it's all about humiliation. In other words, for Mark, the cross is not about pain. The cross is about shame. Okay, now you gotta let that work on you a little bit, because you hear the story in a different way. You got to listen to that not just with your head, but with your heart. Especially men can relate to this. Let's see, how can we do this? Okay, here's what I want you to do. I want you to think about the single most humiliating moment of your life. And in a moment, we're going to go around and share. You're thinking, I don't think so. I'm pretty careful to make sure I keep those things hidden. It's hard for me to pick one out. It started when I was a preschooler. I grew up in those dark days before Nintendo. Dark days. How many of you know what electric football is? There we go. Try explaining that one to a kid. They're used to these computer games. Well, there was this metal board. You plugged it in. The electricity made the board shake, and it was supposed to make the players run to their respective goal lines. And what it actually made them do was spin aimlessly.
We paid money for it.
Yeah, paid good money for those things. Well, I grew up rather poor. And we had a baseball game with no electricity. Just a metal board, that's the baseball field. Metal backboard. Little magnet, that's the baseball. You put the magnet on the front of the backboard. You have the spring-loaded flapper, and you flap the back of the backboard. That makes the magnet fly out on the field, which is metal. And there was these little circles out there for single and double and triple and home run and fly out and ground out and double play. And as you can imagine, this was hours of fun. So I'm just a preschooler and I'm playing with this game and I get bored with it. You can imagine that. When you're a little kid, you got to do something right. So I get the magnet baseball and I put it up my nose. And without going into a lot of detail, the more I try to get it, the more it gets away from me. Men ought to be able to understand this, right? So now I'm imagining myself walking past the desk and all these paper clips flying up my nose. You know, even for a little kid going up to her mom and saying, "Mom, I have a magnet up my nose." A little bit on the embarrassing side. But I was just warming up. That's the kid stuff. The one that creates the pit in my stomach I cannot get rid of. I'm getting ready to speak at a formal banquet. I'm sitting at the front table, the MC is saying a few concluding words, I'm going to get up and speak any moment. And I'm bored. One of the ways I try to relate to my students is I, like them, have the attention span of a gnat. I'm a little distracted now. But anyway, I do what I often do when I'm bored. I rocked back on the two back legs of my chair. Yeah, I know. I appreciate your concern, but I have perfect balance. I really do. I can rock back on the two back legs of my chair forever. No concern. But I got a little more bored, and so I do what I sometimes do when I'm bored. I decided to lean my chair up against the wall behind me. And again, no concerns. I have perfect balance. But unfortunately, the wall I decided to lean myself up against was not a wall, it was a flexible partition. So I lean my chair against it, and it just starts folding away from me. And when you go down in one of those circumstances, you know, you don't go gently, it's kind of one of these things. He is seconds away from saying our speaker, Randy Harris, and I am laying flat on my back on the floor in front of the whole room. And it's hard to recover from that. I'm a spiritual person, so my first impulse was to pray. I said, "Dear God, let something be broken." Thinking an ambulance would be the most dignified way out of this situation. I mean, what do? Get up and say, "Sorry, I forgot to take my seizure medicine this morning. Sorry, I nodded off at your banquet." Fortunately, I almost never see any of the people who are there that night. Once in a great while, I will run into one of them somewhere. And when I do, they don't say, "Hi, Randy." They just start laughing all over again. Somebody said, "How long does it take you to live something like that down?" I said, "So far, I have no idea. I don't appear to be anywhere near that point." And if I could have that night, I would have snapped my fingers and blasted everybody in the room out of existence. And they hadn't done anything, they were just there. All right, I'm trying to be gentle, but I'm also trying to take you somewhere. I have one more story, and I'm not going to tell you that one. I just told you two embarrassing stories. I have one that is truly humiliating. And if I told you that one, I would be destroyed, and you wouldn't be able to bear it. Listen to what Mark's saying. Jesus Christ, Lord of Lords, King of Kings, Creator of the universe, ruler of all things, goes from one humiliating, degrading experience after another, and he can, at any moment, snap his finger and make it stop. And he doesn't. And that, for Mark, is the gospel. And I got to tell you, that one little thought from the book of Mark has meant more to me than all the stories about Jesus' pain. Because shame and humiliation is closer to where we live. We don't like pain, but we will do anything to keep from being shamed or humiliated. And Jesus not only does he not try to stop it, he just says, "Okay, come on. Bring it on. No price too high." And for Mark, that's the gospel. So I'm breathing hard. I'm trying to take that in. And then Jesus turns on us and looks at us and says, "Now that you know what the story is, will you walk this way?" And I got to tell you, I think the future of the church in North America depends on how we answer that question. We have got to convince the world